Thank you very much. And they know this threat probably as well as anybody. We're especially moved today to be joined by families who have suffered unthinkable heartbreak at the hands of the MS-13 gangs. I'm truly honored to be joined again by the courageous families who were my guests at the State of the Union. That was a special evening. Elizabeth Alvarado, Robert Mickens, Evelyn Rodriguez, and Freddie Cuevas. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Their beautiful daughters, Kayla and Nisa, were murdered by MS-13 gang members, many of whom exploited glaring loopholes, and we have the biggest loopholes of any country anywhere in the world. We have the worst immigration laws of any country anywhere in the world. But they exploited the loopholes in our laws to enter the country as unaccompanied alien minors. They look so innocent. They're not innocent. We are praying for these families with us today, and we pledge to honor the memory of those you lost with action and resolve, and I'll just add another word, with great success. And thank you very much for being here. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And they will not have passed in vain, that I can tell you. MS-13 lives by the motto, kill, rape, and control. That's actually their motto. Kill, rape, and control. Last month, MS-13 reportedly called for its members here on Long Island, where I essentially grew up. You know Jamaica, right? I always said Long Island's very close. To call and to see what happened is just incredible. But they killed a cop for the sake of making a statement. They wanted to make a statement. So they killed a cop, a policeman. Here in Nassau County, MS-13 gang members were charged with killing and hacking up a teenager. And police officers just told me 4 other young men were brutally murdered recently by MS-13 in Suffolk County. In Maryland, MS-13 gang members are accused of stabbing a man 100 times, decapitating him, and ripping out his heart. Police officers also believe the MS-13 members beat a sex-trafficked 15-year-old girl with a bat 28 times, totally disfiguring a beautiful young woman. In Texas, 2 MS-13 gang members were charged after kidnapping, drugging, and raping a 14-year-old girl. They then murdered her and somebody else. Crippling loopholes in our laws have enabled MS-13 gang members and other criminals to infiltrate our communities, and Democrats in Congress refuse to close these loopholes, including the disgraceful practice known as catch and release. That's, you catch them, you write up a little piece of paper that's meaningless, and then you release them. And they go all throughout the country, and they're supposed to come back for trials. They never come back, or very rarely. It's the rare person that comes back. Democrats have to abandon their resistance to border security so that we can support law enforcement and save innocent lives. And I noticed recently where Democrats, Nancy Pelosi as an example, are trying to defend MS-13 gang members. I called them animals the other day, and I was met with rebuke. They said, they're people. They're not people. These are animals. And we have to be very, very tough. So I'd now like to turn this over to a man, really, he has been a great friend of mine, a tremendous supporter, and I've always been a supporter of his, Peter King. He does an incredible job, and nobody knows this situation and this horror show and these laws, how bad they are. worst in the world, better than Peter King. Peter?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much. And let me say what.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President, so an honor is to have you back here on Long Island. As you say, you're a neighbor. You were in Suffolk County last year, Nassau County this year, and you, more than anyone in the country, is highlighting the evil of MS-13. I congratulate you. I thank you for leading this effort. They are horrible, vicious, rotten murderers, and you are really leading the charge, and thank you for doing this. Thank you for assembling all of us here today, and thank you for mobilizing all the efforts of the federal government behind this. So thank you very much. Also, on a somewhat jocular note, let me tell Laura Curran I want to thank her for giving visas to Donovan and Zeldin to let them into Nassau County. I promise you I'll get them out of here as soon as I can, okay? So, okay. Now, we're very serious. This is a very serious issue. I have these family members here. I've worked with them. I know what they've gone through. And for anyone who wants to minimize the danger of MS-13, just ask Commissioner Hart, Commissioner Ryder. They know firsthand exactly what this is all about. Let me also commend ICE for the great job that they do. Tom is here, and he's done excellent work in Suffolk County and in Nassau County, working with Nassau and Suffolk County Police. So, Mr. President, you have experts here that can talk. I just want to, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart, for all that you're doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. I do want to say, and I have to pay great tribute to ICE, Border Patrol, but ICE came in, and they are doing a job. We are taking them out by the thousands. Now, if we had laws that were proper, they wouldn't be coming back to the extent. But they've taken them out by the thousands, and it's way down, but it's still far too much, and it's unacceptable. So I thought maybe what we'll do is we'll go around the table, say a few words. If you might, we'll start right here. You have done a fantastic job, and we appreciate it. Let's go. Why don't we start? Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the very day that Attorney General Jeff Sessions was sworn in, you signed an executive order with a very clear directive: reduce crime in America. And it is my honor to support carrying out your mandate by helping to bring MS-13 to justice and by working to dismantle this gang that's terrorizing our communities. I know people in this room are very familiar with the horrifying stats, but MS-13 is one of the most violent and formidable threats that our country faces today. MS-13 leaders may operate out of prisons in El Salvador, but the gang is alive and well in our streets. It is estimated there are 10,000 MS-13 members in the United States. 2,000 are estimated to be right here in Long Island. And their ranks are continually being refilled with new emissaries from El Salvador. MS-13 is infiltrating our high schools, our middle schools, even our elementary schools. The gang's brutality, as you alluded to, Mr. President, just cannot be captured by words. You mentioned their motto: kill, rape, control. They live by that motto. They kill, murdering their victims, murdering them with machetes, chains, knives, bats, firearms. They rape, gang raping young girls, selling them for sex. They control, killing not just rival gang members, but also fellow MS-13 members who are suspected of being cooperators with law enforcement or violated gang rules. For example, in March, an MS-13 member named Elmer Lopez pled guilty to murdering a fellow gang member who is suspected of cooperating with law enforcement. Lopez and his cohorts brought their victim to a secluded, wooded area in Brentwood, maybe about 15 miles from here, where they took turns slashing and stabbing him to death. Mr. President, the victim's skeletal remains were discovered more than 4 months later. A few months ago, MS-13 member Raul Landaverde Haran, who also is facing federal charges for allegedly illegally re-entering the company after he was deported. Landaverde Haran was convicted of murdering someone who had fled El Salvador for Maryland to avoid a kill order from MS-13. Landaverde Haran and his fellow thugs lured that victim to the woods, shot him in the head, and stabbed him in the face and neck. For his role in the murder, Landaverde Haran received a promotion from MS-13. Well, Mr. President, thanks to our criminal justice system, he will also be receiving a mandatory life sentence.
Great.
And to give one other example, Mr. President, last November, Yerman Hernandez Ordonez, a Honduran national who was illegally in the United States, was sentenced for his role of an MS-13 murder in Virginia. Hernandez Ordonez oversaw 2 young MS-13 recruits. They were tasked with murdering a rival gang member to gain admission into MS-13. After 2 failed attempts to shoot the victim almost managed to flee. But Hernandez Ordonez made sure he didn't get away. He chased him down, caught him, and brought him back. The 2 recruits then shot their victim in the head and were initiated into MS-13 later that same day. Mr. President, these and the disgraceful examples that you mentioned in your opening remarks are just a small sample of the unspeakable violence of MS-13. But we are hitting MS-13 hard with targeted prosecutions across the country, including right here in Long Island. We are surging federal prosecutors, surging them to the border to prosecute immigration offenses, surging them to U.S. Attorney's Office around the country to prosecute violent crimes. We're working with our partners in Central America, work that has resulted in thousands of arrests of MS-13 members. We want these savages incapacitated before they can try to cross over our borders. We cannot and we will not permit our country to be a playground for MS-13 to pursue its murderous mission. Dismantling violent gangs is the top priority of this Department of Justice under Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and it will remain such as we continue to use all law enforcement tools at our disposal to rid our streets of the scourge of MS-13. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, John. Great job. Thank you. Great job, John. Tom?
Mr. President, I want to, first of all, I want to thank you for your leadership on this issue. I want to thank the Secretary. I couldn't ask for 2 better bosses that take border security and public safety more seriously than you all. I also want to give a shout out to law enforcement officers in this room, the ones that carry a badge and gun every day and put their lives on line for the communities. We got a president, unprecedented support for law enforcement, and I thank you for that. It's a 33-year veteran law enforcement. You're doing a tremendous job. You got the backs of law enforcement. You got their 6. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, I'm much older and blinder than John, so I got to wear my glasses because there are some important numbers I want to read to back you up on the statements you made coming here, because a lot of times you're questioned about it. So I want to read some numbers.
Good.
I want to thank Rod and John for partnership. They are stepping up. We are prosecuting more MS-13 members and gang members in the history of ICE. ICE is working hard to ensure the United States does not become a safe haven for these criminals. HSI, our division, our criminal investigators in HSI has continued to attack the efforts of MS-13 here domestically and abroad, which I'll speak to in a minute. We have doubled our arrests of MS-13 members under your command, President Trump. In FY17, the first year, HSI ICE arrested 896 MS-13 leaders, members, and associates. They arrested another 4,800 total gang members throughout the United States, to include MS-13. Since FY16, ICE has removed nearly 11,000 criminal gang members. Specifically about New York, the targeting of MS-13 on Long Island is one of the primary goals of ICE because New York is under attack. With a cooperative focus on sources and intelligence, our ongoing initiative, we arrested in the past year 300 MS-13 criminal arrests here on Long Island. And more than 40% of those we have verified are unaccompanied alien children. So it is a problem. There is a connection. MS-13 terrorizes communities and they commit violent crimes, as you said. I know you've been taking a hit on your comments about animals and MS-13, but I think you're being kind. Animals kill for survival. MS-13 kills for sport. They kill to terrorize, and there's a big difference there. We want to push our borders out, so we're attacking MS-13 where the command and controls in El Salvador. Our attaché offices in Central America are working very closely with the federal police in El Salvador, along with El Salvadoran prosecutors. We have arrested and taken off the streets in El Salvador hundreds of MS-13 gang members. We just did a trip down there. We took local law enforcement, some prosecutors down there to meet with the federal police and the prosecutors, who we've totally vetted. They are part of our vetted unit, and we've trained them. We went to one of the prisons down there where 70% of the population in that prison, MS-13 gang members. These are the worst of the worst, and because of ICE's work, along the Bureau and Department of Justice, our intelligence and our evidence supplied to the officials in El Salvador put most of them people in that prison, which, if you think about it, we prevented many of these people from getting to the United States and took them out right there in El Salvador. We'll continue to do that. We'll continue to work with our Salvadoran and Central American partners to play the away game and stop most of them before they get there. I can tell you that ICE is not going to stop making this a priority until we totally dismantle this organization. We won't rest until that's happened. So I want to thank you again for your leadership. ICE is on the job. ICE isn't going away. New York, despite your governor's comments about ICE, ICE has done a lot for this state. We'll continue doing a lot for this state. We've taken nearly 5,000 criminal aliens off the street in New York, and we're not going anywhere. So we're going to be here and do our job and try to make this the safest place that the community's going to have. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.